almost in flames. I grabbed my blankie and opened my bedroom window and screamed for my parents once again. My lungs quickly filled with smoke, and I gasped for breath as my coughing became raspy. Suddenly, my bedroom door opened and a man entered my room. He scooped me up and ran outside with me. Immediately, he handed me over to the paramedics who placed an oxygen mask on my face. The sirens of the ambulance faded as I drifted out of consciousness. My life doesn't have a happy beginning, but if you want to know how it ends, don't run away. Keep watching. It gets interesting. Trust me. That fire happened when I was 5. I'm now 16. My parents died in the hospital, and after spending weeks in the hospital with severe effects from smoke inhalation, I was placed in a group home. At 5, I couldn't understand why the kids were so mean.
Crying again, are we?
A chubby kid named Duke laughed as he walked up to the window I was sitting in front of. I turned my back to him and he grabbed me by the shoulder and spun me around. In the process, one of the legs on the chair broke and I fell to the ground with a thud. I cried out. A 9-year-old boy named Clint ran towards me and helped me to my feet. "Why don't you pick on someone your own size?" Clint growled at Duke. Duke laughed menacingly and raised an eyebrow.
Like you, maggot!
Duke was twice the size of Clint, and I didn't want him to get hurt. Duke tried to punch Clint in his face, but Clint was agile and he dodged every punch and kick Duke attempted. Clint quickly got Duke to the window where he swiftly lifted Duke's legs and toppled him out the window. The other kids at the group home rushed to see Duke scrambling out of the rose bushes underneath the window. From that day forward, Clint and I were inseparable. When Clint turned 18, he enrolled in the army. After Clint left, I got into a lot of fights at the group home and ran away at age 14. Life on the streets was tough. Eventually, a group of street kids took me in and we helped protect and feed each other. The leader's name was Terry. He had been living on the streets since he was 8. These kids were my family for 2 years. During the day, a few of us would go hunting for food while the rest of us would guard the abandoned house. As I sat on the stoop, a luxury car pulled up and the window rolled down. The pleasant face of a middle-aged man with a graying hairline and dazzling smile peered out. "Good afternoon, ma'am." "I ain't no ma'am." I looked at him curiously. What was a car like this doing in this kind of neighborhood? "So then, shall I call you by your name, Nicolette?" How did you know my name? The man ignored my question. "So, Nicolette, I've got some good news for you. I'm here to adopt you." I rolled my eyes. Is this a prank? Did Terry put you up to this? Although I don't know where he would have been able to get the money to hire a preppy guy like you.
"Nicolette, let me assure you that I have no idea who this Terry guy is. I am here because your cousin, Princess Cecilia of Monaco, has been looking for you for years. I'm here to take you away from this dreaded place."
During our conversation, the rest of the gang came back. "Hey, Terry, catch this joker. Apparently, my princess cousin wants to adopt me." A serious look came over Terry's face. He approached the car and spoke with the man while I chatted with the rest of the gang. Terry turned to me. "It's time for you to leave. Trust me." I nodded and hugged the rest of the gang before Terry opened the car door for me and I sat inside. The man handed Terry an envelope, smiled, and rolled up the window. As we drove out of the neighborhood, I asked, what was in the envelope?
"Money. Just a small thank you for keeping you safe."
The gentleman introduced himself as Stan. About 30 minutes later, we pulled up to the front gate of a beautiful house. As we drove through the golden gates, there was a garden to the left and a pool and tennis court to the right. Once the car pulled up in front of the house, a plump, gray-haired lady ran down the steps to greet us. Stan and I hopped out of the car and the driver drove away.
Nicolette, this is Mrs. Lane, the housekeeper. She runs this household like a well-oiled machine.
Welcome, Madam Nicolette. Come on, let's get you cleaned up and put some food in that stomach of yours. As Mrs. Lane led me through the many hallways that led to my room, she chatted about how great it was to have me there. And this is your room, Madam Nicolette. Mrs. Lane turned the knob and opened the door before she stepped aside and let me in the room. There are clothes in the closet, and everything you need to freshen up is in your personal bathroom. As soon as you're ready, please find your way to the dining room. It's so great to have you back, Madam Nicolette. Mrs. Lane quickly closed the door behind her. I wonder what she meant by have me back. My thoughts were completely lost as I searched through the closet for an outfit and passed my fingertips along the expensive furniture. After I took a shower, I threw on one of the outfits from the closet. I was tall, and being on the streets, I was rather thin, so the clothes didn't fit right. But honestly, at that point, I was just happy to wear clean clothes. After 15 minutes of what felt like walking through a series of mazes, I finally found the dining room. Oh, there you are, Nicolette. I was just about to send the cavalry for you. The aroma of the food made me drool. After I had eaten as much as I could, Stan told me that he had to organize my paperwork before I could leave the country, and Princess Celia was expecting me in 2 weeks. Finally, the day came, and we arrived at the palace in Monaco. Fun fact, in Monaco, the official language is French, although Monegasque, Italian, and English are spoken and understood by a sizable group. I turned to Stan. Does this mean I have to learn French? Yes, Nicolette. Your tutors will arrive next week to begin your classes. I smiled mischievously. Or can I hire a translator? Stan laughed. He stopped at a large door. Are you ready to meet Princess Celia? I nodded and flattened my clothes nervously, my heart fluttering like a frightened bird in a cage. Stan opened the door and motioned for me to go inside and closed the door behind me. Nicolette! I nodded. Princess Celia ran towards me and embraced me. Thank God! We finally found you! I'm Princess Celia, but you can call me Sisi. What do you mean you finally found me? We've been looking for you ever since we heard about that dreadful incident with your parents. We are cousins! Please accept my condolences. Thank you, but did you say cousins? Yes, your dad was my dad's younger brother. My dad was a king of Monaco, but sadly, my parents also passed away a few months ago. I'm so sorry. I held Cece's hand. I have the best advisory team in Monaco any princess could ask for. I'm just glad we found you in time. In 3 months, it will be my 18th birthday, and I'll also be crowned Queen of Monaco. Let's find somewhere quiet so we can catch up. I was quite happy in Monaco. Most of the day, Cece was surrounded by the advisors, and, well, she was the only person at the palace around my age. Many days after classes, I explored the palace and climbed the trees in the palace garden. While exploring one day, I found a huge metal door behind one of the tapestries in the forbidden part of the palace. I pushed the door, but it was locked. No worries, though. I quickly found tools to pick the locks. My street days finally proved to be useful. I heard the lock click, pushed the door open, slid inside, and closed the door behind me. Before me, a spiral staircase descended. The staircase was dark, and I pressed my hand against the cold wall to guide me. Eventually, I came to a dimly lit circular room where there were large metal gates. Cool! The palace has a dungeon! Hello? Who's there? A woman's voice called from one of the cells. Sorry. I backed away slowly. I didn't expect to find anyone here. I'll be leaving now. Please, don't leave! The woman and a man appeared before the gate. Who are you? This time, the man spoke. We're Cece's parents. My jaw dropped. Cece told me her parents died.
I can assure you,
The man said,
we are still very much alive.
if you're Cece's parents, why are you locked down here? Cece's mother went on to tell me that after the real king and queen had passed away, they ruled the kingdom. However, about a year ago, things changed drastically, and Cece bribed her way to the throne. She told the citizens that they had died, and only a handful of servants know they are here. Cece has another dungeon where she keeps the families of the people who know her alive. She told them if they ever told anyone, they will never see their families again. But that doesn't sound like Cece. You're lying. I backed away.
Actually, they aren't. But thank you for believing in me.
I spun around and there stood Cece, a look of disgust worn on her face, and 2 palace guards.
You've made this quite easy, Nicolette.
I heard a sharp gasp escape from Cece's mother's lips.
Open the gate so they might enjoy their family reunion.
I struggled against the guards, but it was no use. Cece grabbed my tools from my hands and I was thrown into the cell with Cece's parents.
Great! Now I have to get rid of all of you and take my rightful place as Queen of Monaco!
Cece laughed deviously and left the dungeon with the palace guards following close behind. Cece's mother ran and hugged me. Oh, Nicolette, is it really you? But how? The fire? We thought you all perished. Cece's father took my hand.
It doesn't matter. The true Queen has returned.
Queen? I croaked out the word.
Yes, Queen. Your father, my brother, was older and crowned king. When he died, we thought you were dead as well. I became the king. I am your Uncle Frederick, and this is your aunt, my wife, Amy.
But how are we going to get out? Over the next few days, I spent time in the cell with Cece's parents. Not one servant dared to help us. When they found out who I really was, they ran out of the dungeon. Nicolette, wake up! Aunt Amy hissed in my ears. Someone's coming! I woke up and Aunt Amy shielded me with her body.
I'm sorry it took us so long.
Stan! I ran from behind Aunt Amy, but Aunt Amy pulled me back. He's one of the guards who locked us away in this dungeon. And I'm also the reason you're not dead, Stan said as he unlocked the gate and opened it for us to escape. I trust him. Come on, we don't have much time. Uncle Frederick took Aunt Amy's hand and we followed Stan out of the dungeon. At the door, we were greeted by palace guards sworn to protect us. You 3, get them to a safe place. The rest of you, come with me. Any unloyal guard is to be rounded up and thrown into the dungeon, Stan instructed. Let's go to the old stables. There's a secret room built in, Aunt Amy suggested. We all ran towards the stables, and once inside, Aunt Amy snatched me. We were surrounded by guards. Our guards were disarmed and forced to lie down on the floor. Cece walked out from one of the stables. Amy, what the heck are you doing? Uncle Frederick cried out. Doing what I should have done a long time ago. She snatched one of the swords from the palace guards and stuck it into Uncle Frederick's stomach. No! I cried. Cece, honey, you will be the rightful heir to Monaco. Not if we can help it. My eyes widened. Terry and a troop of soldiers stood at the entrance. Now, traitors, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. The palace guards stepped in front of Cece, Aunt Amy, and me. Come on, girls, Aunt Amy said. We'll escape through the back. As Aunt Amy tried to run, Uncle Frederick grabbed her leg and she tripped. Nicolette, run! He said between gritted teeth. I ran as fast as my legs could carry me and scaled one of the trees in the palace garden. I hid in the thickest part of the tree and kept as quiet as I possibly could. It wasn't until late that night that I heard Stan calling out my name.
Don't worry, Nicolette! It's safe to come out now!
I climbed down the tree and walked up behind Stan. It was you, wasn't it? Stan turned around. It was you who saved me from the fire! Stan nodded. Yes, it was. I hugged Stan.
So, no hugs for me?
I smiled at Terry and hugged him. I looked between Stan and Terry. How? Stan laughed.
We had eyes on you since you were at the orphanage. Clint is around here somewhere. Then, when you ran away, it was Terry's turn. And well, the rest is history.
Clint's here? I looked at Stan. But why didn't you bring me back after my parents died?
Because we heard a rumor that someone wanted you dead. We had to keep you safe until you were old enough to handle the responsibilities of running a kingdom.
Is Uncle Frederick okay?
He's a fighter. He'll be okay.
And what about Amy and Cece?
In the town's jail with the rest of them.
So, what happens now?
Well,
Terry smiled.
You get to become queen, Your Majesty.
Terry bowed low. That night, and for the rest of the week, Monaco celebrated the return of their princess. I also reunited with Clint. On the last day of festivities, I was crowned queen, with Clint, Stan, and Terry as my most trusted advisors. My story didn't have such a happy beginning, but I'm thankful that things turned around for me. Just keep hopeful. They might turn around for you too.
I hate you! Good. Why should I care? And it's your fault Dad is in prison! And... You're the worst mother ever! Okay. I'm going to my room! Send me a postcard!
My mom really annoyed me sometimes. In fact, all the time. And if you want to see how I got my revenge, you have to keep watching this video. This time, I was angry because she gave my PS5 away. She said I needed to improve my grades, then I couldn't sit around the house all day like a fat, spoiled baby. That was totally unfair, though. Firstly, we were rich, and secondly, I wanted to be a video game developer in the future. So how could I get there? By playing video games all day, of course, and even skipping school some days if it was necessary. Well, I say we were rich, but it's actually my mom who is rich, and she became that way for snitching on my dad. They were both robbers. Yeah, no kidding, don't laugh. They grew up in a poor neighborhood and fell in love when they were teenagers. They then started robbing little stores and realized they were good at it. So they started robbing more and more. Then they became part of a criminal ring and got into deeper and darker crimes. It all ended during their last bank robbery together. The cameras caught my dad's face. The cops came to our house to interview my mom, and she told them that the man in the picture was indeed her husband, and that she had no idea he was a thief. The liar! So they arrested my dad that same night, and I haven't seen him since. He's in a maximum security prison now. But you know what? My mom had loads of money stored up which she had traded for gold. She didn't trust banks and didn't want anyone to become suspicious about why she had all the money. So we literally had a vault in our house with a security code and everything. And it was full of gold bricks. When my dad went to prison, I was only 4 years old. I missed him a lot, but my mom tried to drown my sadness with toys and other stupid things like that. So I guess I had a fun childhood because I had every single thing a girl could ask for. I also had really cute friends in my neighborhood, and we always did loads of fun stuff together. There were some days I didn't think about my dad at all. And now that I think about it, I wonder if he'd be sad if he knew. Enough about my childhood, though. When I was 16 is when my real life began. My mom decided that she didn't want to spoil me and she didn't want me to become like those dumb blondes with puppies in their purses. She wanted me to learn how to work hard and to understand that life wasn't going to hand me everything on a silver platter. She gave me an allowance that was lower than some of my middle-class friends. Some of them even laughed.
Monica, you live in a mansion and your mom has 3 expensive cars, yet we always have to buy you food. That's hilarious.
I didn't think it was hilarious, though. I thought it was ridiculous, and I was going to do something about it. Nowadays, everyone is talking about how to get rich quick, and there are hundreds of books about how to become a millionaire. They don't work, by the way, but somehow I was inspired to start my own underground business at school. Candy wasn't allowed at school, so I started with that. I bought my first stash with some money that I had saved up, then sold everything for an extra $1. I used the profit to buy more candy, and I kept making even more profits. But I wasn't satisfied. You're finally paying when we go out, Monica. Your business is doing really well. Yeah, but I think it can do better. What do you think would sell? I don't know. Stolen jewelry? No! Of course I can't do that. I'm not trying to go to prison. Something legal? Maybe candy? Good idea. Anybody got a fake ID? Go buy me a carton, please. My friend Todd went to buy me some candy, and I upgraded my business the next day. I hid out in a secret spot near the janitor's room. There were no cameras there, and the janitor didn't come in until 4 p.m. On my first day, I made about $200, and by the end of my first month, I'd reached the thousands. Now I had enough to spend on my friends and splurge on myself, and my mom didn't suspect a thing. Ha! Who needed her allowance now? Then it all came tumbling down. Monica, Ray is selling drinks in the boys' bathroom. They say he's selling candy too, and that they're better than the ones you're selling. Oh, so that's why business is slow today, huh? I paid it no mind and continued on my merry way. But I guess Ray wasn't happy about the competition. He found a way to expose my business, and the next day, a school prefect caught me in the middle of a transaction. I was sent straight to the principal's office, and my mom was called in.
How could you do something like this? I thought I raised you better than that. I am so disappointed.
She said, nearly crying, "You don't give me enough money. That's why. It's your fault."
Don't talk to your mother like that. Anyway, she's suspended for 2 weeks, and she'll have detention for the rest of the term.
Okay, Principal Robert. Thank you. Monica, let's go!
We left the school, and my mom was quiet all the way home. When we finally got into the living room, she opened her mouth, but I wasn't quite ready for the lecture she was about to give me.
You need to be smarter about your business, girl.
What?
You need to have better strategies.
You shouldn't have gotten caught like that. How did it happen? Well, there's this guy called Ray who started selling stuff too. He took most of my customers, and I think he reported me so he could get the rest of them.
You have to destroy him, then work on a better strategy. I see the apple didn't fall too far from the tree, huh?
What? You're not upset. You're not going to lecture me?
Oh, no. I'm actually proud of you. Now go to your room and make a proper plan, and after your 2-week suspension, you'd better be ready to chew this Ray guy up and spit him out onto the floor.
I stared at her in amazement. Most moms would be scandalized if their daughters were running underground businesses at school, but here was mine encouraging me? That was wild. For a few days, I actually liked my mom. When I went back to school, I got Petra, the class nerd, to go to Ray's spot at lunchtime to request some drinks. She had her phone in her pocket and was recording the whole transaction. When she was done, she sent the video to me and I sent it to the principal. At this point, he was just so overwhelmed with all of this underground activity that he didn't even bother to suspend Ray. He simply expelled him. So that ended my competition and my business started to flourish again. Mom, what you said worked. I got Ray expelled and now I got all my customers back. Great job. But what? I want a cut.
50% or I'm going to report you myself.
What?
You heard me. I'm your mother, and that makes me your manager. So technically, this is my business. I'm being generous by allowing you to keep 50%.
But you already have so much money!
Go upstairs and get changed for dinner, dear.
I was fuming. I couldn't believe that I actually tolerated my mother for some time. It turned out that she was the same awful woman. Anyway, I had a distraction because a hot guy named Gary had been checking me out for some time. Then there was Jonathan, who was also a total hottie, and I loved spending time with him. Sometimes when my mom took too much of my money, he'd buy me stuff and treat me like a princess. Don't get me wrong, though. I wasn't broke. The business was still flourishing. It's just I had other interests now. But because I had to focus on school and the business, I found it hard to spend time with the guys during the day. So I let them sneak into my room at night. Gary came on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, while Jonathan came on Fridays and weekends. Thursday was my day. So I was mostly happy until I made a huge mistake one Friday night. Jonathan had snuck in a few minutes ago, but because I was feeling really sleepy, I told him I wanted to take a nap. He got into bed next to me and we cuddled for a bit. Then suddenly...
Monica, what on earth do you think you're doing?
Mom, how the heck did you get in here? I cringed so hard. Apparently, I forgot to lock the door. Jonathan sat up and looked like a scared kitten.
I'm sorry. We weren't doing anything, I swear.
Get out of my house!
He jumped out the window, and I don't think I've ever been more embarrassed in my life.
Listen to me, young lady. You're not allowed to have a boyfriend.
What? I can run an illegal business at school, but I can't date? I'm 16, Mom, not 12.
I'm your mother, and these are my rules. Oh yeah, and you're grounded for a month.
You're the worst mom on the planet. You're such a hypocrite. I didn't get a chance to finish all the horrible things I wanted to tell her because she walked out of my room and slammed the door. I refused to speak to her all weekend. Then, when I returned home from school on Monday, I noticed that she had installed locks on my windows. The nerve! Anyway, I still continued to see my boyfriends. I just had to be more creative about it. I snuck out of class, and sometimes we'd drive to nowhere just to make out and stuff. That annoying woman wasn't going to ruin my vibe. It was going to be all right, you know, until my mom pulled this ridiculous stunt.
Monica, darling, this is Clyde, my new boyfriend.
You're what?
Hello, dear. It's so nice to meet you. I've heard so much about you.
Shut up. Mom, how can you have a boyfriend but I can't have one?
I hope you send this brat to boarding school after we're married.
After what?
Yes, honey. We've been dating for a while and he proposed to me a week ago. This is why I'm allowing you to meet him now. We're going to be moving to Bora Bora. It's going to be awesome. You'll love it.
How are we even going to afford that?
Hello? The stash? I'm converting it to cash this minute. Soon, our room of gold will be filled with paper, baby.
I didn't know what else to say or do, so I pushed them past and locked myself in my room. I didn't like this Clyde guy at all. And how could she just forget all about my dad like that? He was still in prison because of her, and she was just going to run away to French Polynesia with some idiot. I sat and made my plan. A week later, I peeped into the vault and noticed that my mom had already converted all the gold. Somehow she had trusted me with a combination to the room, so I was able to let myself in easily. I stuffed about $100,000 into my bag, then zipped it up. I doused the money in alcohol, lit a match, and set it all on fire. I ran outside to see my evil plan unfold.
First, our smoke detectors went off. Then I saw black smoke escaping through the windows. Soon, the entire house was on fire. My mom and Clyde showed up at the same time as the fire brigade. I pretended to be scared, then I smiled an evil smile at my mom.
Enjoy Bora Bora, Mom.
I turned around and left. I decided to go visit my dad in prison to tell him about everything that had happened. He was really excited to see me after all those years.
So, she found a boyfriend, huh? I'm sure it was Clyde.
What? How did you know?
I found out they were having an affair while we were together. I think she set me up to get rid of me.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Dad.
Ah, well, you got revenge for both of us, huh? I guess the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Good job, Monica.
I said goodbye to my dad and promised to visit him more often. I decided not to go back to my mom. I used the money I took from her to rent a small room, and I started a small business selling smoothies. It's definitely not as profitable as my underground business at school, but at least I never have to see that awful woman again. My dad is getting out soon, and I hope that we'll be able to live together and make ends meet.
I'd rather be broke with him than rich with that snake of a mom.
I remember it like it was just yesterday.
I can't believe it, bro. It's finally happened. I'm finally a signed musical artist.
Josiah said to me excitedly as soon as we entered the car on the way home after signing his contract. I was so happy for him because I'd seen how hard and tirelessly he'd worked to achieve this. 4 years later, and he was now a well-known and extremely famous musician. One windy day, on our way to the venue of one of his shows on the tour bus, I overheard him in a conversation on the phone with someone, presumably his manager. He sounded extremely tired, which was expected because he had performed 2 back-to-back shows for 2 nights in a row, and he had to perform one more this night.
I'm getting really tired, Ernie.
I overheard him say.
How many more of these do I have to do? I don't think I can go through with this.
He was on the phone for about 3 more minutes before he finally hung up, and before I could even ask, he sat beside me and he said to me,
James, this is becoming harder and harder the more I go on. I don't know how much more touring and moving from place to place I can handle. I'm beginning to feel burnt out.
I understand what you mean, Josiah. I know it's not easy, but you gotta do what you gotta do. That's how showbiz works. How many more of these shows do you have to do before the tour's over?
3, but it feels like an eternity. I can't wait to get home and just relax. I know I wanted to be famous, but I'm beginning to have second thoughts about it. I mean, my life isn't even my own. I thought I would have more control over my life, not less of it. But I guess you're right. I just have to keep on doing whatever they want me to do.
How about we celebrate this night after the show? I offered. You need something to take your mind off this and blow off some steam.
All right, bro.
8 hours later, and we were cruising around town in his car. We had just been to a nightclub, and Josiah was feeling much better. Josiah kept one hand on the wheel as he turned to me and asked,
You never did learn how to drive, did you?
Nope, I replied.
Well, there's a first time for everything. You gotta learn one day, don't you?
Josiah said to me as he left the car engine running, stepped out of the car, and walked over to the front passenger seat. He opened the door and we switched seats. I could feel my hands shaking as the car moved along. I took a peek at the speedometer and I was moving at a measly 10 miles per hour. Josiah encouraged me to go faster, and I did. But it didn't take long before the car collided with a parked truck. The entire windows were smashed, but miraculously I wasn't hurt. I checked myself for any damage and there was none, save for some bruises and scratches. Josiah, though, had received some serious injuries and was hospitalized, where he was told that the accident damaged his vocal cords irreparably and that he would never be able to sing again. Josiah asked the doctors not to tell anyone else about this. Soon after, a record label executive came to check on Josiah.
How are you holding up, buddy?
Mr. Camp asked.
Well, I'm getting better. I'll soon be able to get on my feet and make some hit songs in no time. Well, focus on your recovery for now. We wouldn't want anything to happen to your voice now, would we? Nothing to worry about, Mr. Camp. The damage is only temporary.
Josiah and Mr. Camp discussed for a few more minutes before he left. 3 months later, Josiah was back in the studio recording new songs. He tried his utmost best, but it was very obvious to all those present in the studio. He had lost his sweet, silky singing voice, and he was never going to get it back. By now, rumors about his accident and its implications had leaked, and everyone was concerned. Would this affect Josiah's voice? Could this mean the end of his short career as a well-known musician? And so, I thought of a plan.
Are you crazy? How did you think that would work?
Josiah yelled as I told him of my plan. Well, think about it for a second. We have the same height, build, and even the same skin tone. Making me look like you would not be so hard to do. It's like everything's perfectly aligned, I replied, excited.
And what about the most important thing? My voice? Are you going to undergo surgery for that too?
Josiah replied, pacing back and forth angrily. Well, we do sound alike. I know I'm not as good a singer as you, but I'm a quick learner, and in a short while, with the right coach, the way I sing would be indistinguishable from yours. Can't you see that I'm trying to help you here?
Really? You call that helping? You want to become me? Can't you see how that's crazy? There can only be one Josiah.
I'm sorry, I thought I was trying to help. Josiah's album finally dropped, and it was a stinker. There were bad reviews everywhere. I looked up the top 200 music charts, and not a single Josiah song was on there. His album of 18 songs couldn't manage a single song in the top 200 songs in the country at the moment. And to make things worse, there was a new up-and-coming singer who was garnering media attention. It was even rumored that Josiah's record label had offered him a record deal with the aim of getting rid of Josiah. The final straw was when Josiah could no longer afford to make payments on his enormous mansion and had to move out to a much smaller condo.
All right, you win.
Josiah said to me on the phone one early morning.
Let's go with your crazy idea.
Thank goodness he finally agreed. Good morning, Dr. Kim, I said to the doctor as I sat in his office. Josiah was already present, waiting for me. The doctor informed me of the procedure I was to undergo and how long I would take to recuperate. I didn't really listen to anything he said. I just wanted the procedure to be done so we could move on.
I must say, James, this is the first time I've done something like this.
Well, doctor, there's a first time for everything.
None of my patients have ever asked me to make them look exactly like someone else, because it's really hard to do so, but lucky for you, I'm the best in the business.
Well, that's why we came to you, Dr. Kim, I replied, smiling. We talked a bit more, and then we decided on a date for the surgery. The days flew by, and before long, the appointed day had arrived and the surgery was performed. A month later, I was in Dr. Kim's office again for a post-surgery checkup. Josiah was running late, and he came in 20 minutes later, sweating.
Sorry I'm late.
Then he looked at me.
I'm still getting used to the fact that you look exactly like me, especially as I'm not a twin. It's freaky.
Well, James, it seems everything is in order. I'm impressed at how alike you two are now. Almost indistinguishable, like two identical twins.
Dr. Kim said as he stared at me and Josiah. It's all thanks to you, doctor. You really outdid yourself.
Well, I guess I did.
Over the next few weeks, I began to learn everything I could about Josiah, from Josiah. My singing voice was the same as his. I'd become a much better singer than him, and some months later, I released an album. It soon began to climb the music charts, and before long, it was multi-platinum as well, even doing much better than Josiah's previous albums. A few months later, I got a call from Mr. Camp. We discussed how well my album was doing and started to make plans for a world tour. Then, just before he hung up the phone, he said something to me that made my blood turn cold.
Oh, and just so you know, I already know that you're not the real Josiah. I know all about what really happened. But not to worry, your secret is safe with me. You're raking in the big bucks for our record label, so just continue to do that and we're good.
I struggled to reply as I stammered, But how did you know? Who told you?
That's not important.
Mr. Camp replied, and he hung up the phone. It was the night of one of my concerts, and here I was performing for over 10,000 people who had gathered in the stadium, when I suddenly began to feel dizzy. And before I could stop myself, I collapsed to the floor in a heap and blacked out. I awoke in a hospital bed and was informed that the cause of my fainting was severe dehydration and exhaustion. I would need to take a break from performing, and so my remaining shows were postponed until I got better. The next day, I was in my enormous mansion when I suddenly began to feel something slimy drip down my face. I thought nothing of it and wiped it off. But when it continued for several days, I decided to pay a visit to Dr. Kim. But imagine my surprise when I got to the address of his building and found it entirely empty, as if he had never been there. It didn't take me long, though, to find out why he did that. I watched the nightly news in horror as they declared Dr. Kim wanted by the police for unethical medical practices. They even stated that he had been operating without a license for over a decade. I immediately booked an appointment with another experienced plastic surgeon, and after tests were concluded, He informed me that I was still lucky to be alive and have a face, as my face would have started to break down and fall off piece by piece if I didn't come in when I did. I sat there shocked to my bones as the doctor explained all this to me. We scheduled another surgery to correct what was done to my face, but after it, my face became severely scarred. While I was still recovering, Mr. Camp dropped by the hospital to pay me a visit.
Well, I don't know how to say this, but
He began. But what? I replied anxiously.
we're dropping you from the record label. Your contract is not going to be renewed. The media somehow got hold of your story, and it's causing a storm that the record label is not willing or ready to handle. I'm sorry, kiddo.
He turned around and began walking towards the door. But just as he opened the door and was about to walk out, he asked me if I would really like to know who informed him that I was not the real Josiah. I nodded my head in the affirmation, and he told me that it was all Josiah. He had even bragged about it to Mr. Camp. This made me feel extremely sad, and as soon as I recovered, I immediately went up to Josiah's secret location to confront him. Unknown to him, I had my phone in my breast pocket, and he was being recorded and broadcast live. It was there that he revealed to me that he knew Dr. Kim a long time ago, and he purposely referred him to me, hoping that I would die after a few months. But after I didn't, and even had corrective surgery, his jealousy grew more and more.
I was the one that leaked your story to the press. It was me all along. It felt so good to watch you struggle.
His words hurt me like a sword to the heart. I had known him all these years, and he still wanted to keep me under him. I cried silently as I left his house after the confrontation, and as expected, my live video garnered a lot of attention, and the public saw the kind of person Josiah was and began to turn against him. I decided to make my own path and forge my own career as an artist with my own name and identity. After a while, I got signed to a record label that believed in me, and right now, I'm doing extremely well. The last time I heard of Josiah, his record label had dropped him. His own fans had turned against him, and he had seemingly vanished from social media and the public eye. He had now become an outcast.